everyone. So in today's class, we'll be discussing on the topic theory of demand. So we all know what a demand is. Demand is in basic words, it's the willingness and the ability of a person to purchase certain commodities. So it is a multivariate relationship, which means it is determined by many factors simultaneously. So that word is very important over there, that is simultaneously. So it is not just one factor, there are 4 or 5 factors or even more factors that affect demand at the same time. So a few of the important determinants are own price, then consumers' income, prices of other commodities, consumers' taste, income distribution, total population, government policy. All these factors affect demand simultaneously. So we'll first look into each factor and its graph. So for that, we'll just change the slide. I had first said that we have 5 scenarios. So first one being the price of own commodity. So in that, the basic idea is when the price of the commodity increases, the demand for that commodity decreases. So we can see this in the law of demand as well, that when the price of a basic commodity increases, the demand would decrease. We can state that with the help of an example, saying, say suppose the price of a phone. So if it is a very normal phone, then we can say that when its price increases, the demand would decrease. But that won't be the case of luxurious commodities, wherein suppose we can say iPhone, wherein the price increases, the demand also increases. So this is an exemption to the law of demand. So we won't be considering that. Other than that, the price of the own commodity, we can see that when the price increases, demand decreases. So that would be the first factor. Then second one is the price of related commodities. So here we can see there are 2 types of goods, complementary and substitute goods. So explaining each good, we can say that what are complementary goods? Complementary goods are those goods that go together. So that would be, for example, the pen and ink. That's a very common example. Similarly, we can also take an example of car and petrol or something. Okay, so these goods are those goods that go simultaneously. So when we have a pen, it is necessary that we have to buy ink for that pen to work, right? So similarly, if we have a car, if we don't put in petrol, there's no point in having a car, right? So these goods go simultaneously together, and substitute goods are those goods that can be substituted. The name itself suggests that. So substitute goods, we can say, for example, tea and coffee. So with that, we can say that if someone, we can say if the price of tea increases, then someone would prefer to buy coffee if its price is reduced, right? So these are the examples of the supplementary, substitute and the complementary goods. Moving on to the graph, we have first we'll analyze the increase in the price of complementary goods. So based on these diagram, we can see X and Y. Yeah, so if there's an increase in the price of complementary goods, the demand curve would shift to the left. So this is the demand curve, and it would shift to the left. Why is there a shift? Because there is decrease in the demand of those goods, right? So if the price of pen, or suppose if the price of ink increases, okay, then the demand for pen will also decrease, right? So if with the help of increase in the price of complementary goods, we can say there is decrease in demand. At the same time, if we see another diagram where there is decrease in the price of complementary goods, the demand curve shifts to its right. So there we can find there is increase in demand. So here overall we can see a negative relationship. We can see a negative relationship of the commodities. On the other side, if we take the substitute goods, okay, so in the substitute goods, first we'll consider there is increase in the price of substitute goods. So when there's an increase in the price of substitute goods, the demand curve shifts to its right. Why right side? Because that shows increase in the demand of those commodities. So if the price of tea increases, then the demand for coffee would also increase. So that shows a positive relationship between two commodities. So that would sum up the price of related commodities. Moving on, third, we have income of consumers. So that's a very interesting topic where we have the positive as well as the negative income effect. So, wherein firstly we'll suppose that when the income increases or income decreases, then the demand remains constant. So in that case, such commodities, so we'll see here the nature of commodities. So in that case, when the income increases or decreases and the demand remains constant, such goods are known as necessary goods. Okay, and then in the second thing, here we can see if when there's a positive income effect, when the income increases or income decreases, the demand might increase or decrease, wherein we'll get necessary or luxurious goods. And in the third case, there is negative income effect, where the income increases or income decreases and the demand decreases and increases. At that case, we can see inferior goods. So these are the types of the factors that affect the demand. Now, moving on. So that was regarding the factors affecting the demand. Now we'll see the theory of consumer behavior. So there we can find that the traditional theory of demand, that is the behavior of the consumer, since the market demand is assumed to be summation of the demands of individual consumers. So what there's a difference between an individual demand and the market demand. So market demand would be the summation of individual demands. And here we can assume that each consumer is rational. Rational meaning that he would prefer those goods which are best for him. So there we can see also the axiom of utility maximization, which states that given his income and market prices, so his income plays a very important role. So that would show the budget line, wherein if the estimated budget line is this much, or if your income is at this level, you cannot buy above that, right? You can always buy below that level. So if this is the level of income, there has to be the goods that we are buying should be below that always. So given his income and the market prices of various commodities, he plans the spending of his income to attain the highest possible satisfaction of or utility. So the word utility means the satisfaction attained by each person. So that could be further compared. So that can be into two parts, that is two basic approaches we can say, that is the cardinalist approach and the ordinalist approach. So these are the two basic approaches used in utilities. So the cardinalist school postulated that utility can be measured in subjective units called utils. So basically what it means that is the cardinalist, they said that the utility can be measured. So it can be measured in monetary units known as utils. So an easy way to remember that can maybe using cards. So cards has numbers on it, and based on that we can just if we want, we can remember that cards can be used or can be measured in monetary terms and thus named utils. On the other hand, we have ordinalist school that said that utility is not measurable, but an ordinal magnitude rank can be given. So the ordinalist people, they told that it cannot be fully, completely measured in terms of monetary units, but we can rank our preferences based on the baskets of unit. Or say, suppose if I have five goods, I can rank which one is of more priority for me, and based on that, based on my preference, I can buy that commodity. But on the other hand, the cardinalist, there was a numbers given to each commodity. So the main ordinal theories are the indifference curve and the revealed preference hypothesis, which we'll be seeing in further classes. Here we'll be focusing on the cardinal utility theory, and first moving on to the basic assumptions of cardinal utility theory. We have rationality, cardinal utility, then constant marginal utility of money, diminishing marginal utility, and the total utility of the basket of goods depends on the quantities of individual commodities. So looking into each of it in detail, first one is the consumer is rational. So here the basic assumption given is consumer is always rational. But when we look into the real world, so this could be a criticism wherein when we look into the real world, a consumer is not always rational. So, but then here the assumption is given that the consumer is rational. What exactly does that rationality means? That he aims at the maximization of the utility subject to the constraint imposed by his given income. So, whatever income he gets or whatever income he has, based on that, he'll be buying the best out of it, and there won't be any other constraints or any other things that would be coming in his way, and he would always buy the best commodity. That is based on rationality theory. Second, we have the cardinal utility, which means that it is measurable, and the most convenient measure is money, and the utility is measured by monetary units. So then third one, we have constant marginal utility of money. So here it means that so firstly we'll have to know the meaning of the word marginal. So marginal utility or marginal itself means one additional unit. So for example, if you're taking the production of a company and or the work done by each laborer, so there might be 100 workers or 100 laborers, and estimating the work done by each laborer, if the work done by one additional laborer is not increasing the production or the productivity of that company, then there's no point in having that one additional thing, right? So similarly, here we can see that marginal utility of money, which means marginal is one additional utility of money. So here it is assumed to be constant. So here it says that if the marginal utility of money changes as income increases or decreases, the measuring rod for utility becomes an elastic ruler inappropriate for measurement. So this could also be taken as a criticism, which we'll be discussing later. But here, while we are analyzing the assumptions, we can say that the marginal utility of money remains constant. Then we have diminishing marginal utility. So as I mentioned earlier, what is marginal utility? Marginal utility is one additional, with the one addition increase in the consumption, the level of utility, does it increase or not? So here it says it's diminishing marginal utility. So the basic example that is given for utility is I might like ice creams a lot, and but if I'm consuming continuously, like maybe for 4, 5, or 6, so when I consume the first ice cream, it gives me a lot of satisfaction. And saying in this terms, I can give it or I can number it as 10 out of 10 for the utility that I received for that particular ice cream. If I'm having the second cup of ice cream, then the utility or the satisfaction that I get might not be the same that I received from the first cup. So that might differ. And simultaneously, if I have 4 to 5 cups, then the utility or the satisfaction that I got from the first cup and the satisfaction that I'm getting or the utility that I'm getting from the fifth cup would differ. So as it differs based on the economist's theory, there is diminishing marginal utility, which means the as I consume one additional unit or one additional ice cream, the satisfaction or the utility that I'm getting keeps on reducing. So that is the diminishing marginal utility, which states that the marginal utility of a commodity diminishes as the consumer acquires larger quantities of it, known as the axiom of diminishing marginal utility. The last assumption is the total utility of a basket of goods depends on the quantities of the individual commodities. So if there are n commodities, if you're taking, for example, n commodities in a bundle with quantities x1, x2, say till xn, then the total utility that we receive would be in accordance with the bundle of quantities that we have consumed. So next, moving on to the derivation of the demand of the consumer. Here we can see the same example, that is based on the diminishing utility, it goes into negative. So that is what is explained over here, that the derivation of the demand is based on the axiom of diminishing marginal utility. And X may be depicted by the line with a negative slope. So the marginal utility of X is the slope of the total utility function. U is equal to function of Qx, and it is at a decreasing rate. Okay, so here we can see that according to the marginal utility of X, it declines continuously and becomes negative beyond certain point, we can see. And based on that, X is identical to the positive segment of the marginal utility curve. So here on the y-axis, we can see marginal utility, and on the x-axis, there is quantity. Similarly, here in this diagram, there is a quantity, and on the y-axis, we have price of certain commodities. So here it is explained with the help of price as well, wherein at x1 the marginal utility of mu1 is equal to p1. So at x1 mu1 is equal to p1. Similarly, hence the p1 is the consumer demand x1 quantity. So p1 can be stated as the consumer demanded x1 quantity. Similarly, if we take x2, that is here x2, the marginal utility received is mu2, and at the same line we can see p2. So here p2 will be the consumer will buy x2 at p2. So this negative section of mu curve does not form part of the demand curve, and this, yeah. So this goes on, and there is a diminishing curve that we can see. Moving on to the critic of the cardinal approach, as I had mentioned earlier. So the first one is the attempt by Walras to use subjective units, that is the utils, does not provide any satisfactory solution. So that is the first critique. Second one is the assumption of the constant utility of money is also unrealistic. So as I had mentioned earlier, the income increases, the marginal utility of money changes. So if you receive more salary, definitely the income increases and the marginal utility, so that is an extra satisfaction that you receive from the money, will also change. So it won't remain the same. So we can't assume it to be constant all over. So that was the second critique. And the third one is the axiom of diminishing marginal utility has been established from interception. It is a psychological law that must be taken for granted. So the diminishing marginal utility, so we had said that it keeps on decreasing. And so this sums up the whole theory of demand, where we saw that the various factors, its graph and its explanation, then the axiom of utility maximization, then we saw the cardinal utility theory assumptions, which were 5 of them, then the derivation of demand and the critique of the cardinal approach. Thank you.